Hello everyone, this is segment 3 for AllergyFree. We're going to be talking about the skin testing designed for primary care. Now in this allergy testing, we're going to review the different panel. We're going to review how we came up with the panel, how this is a testing panel designed for all 9 regions of the United States. And we'll also go through the 5 easy steps to be allergy-free, which includes the diagnostics, why you do the testing, and also how you record the results. The 5 easy steps to be allergy-free. First, let's talk about the patient survey and the symptom score. What you'll end up doing is we created an allergy-free marketing material which allows the patient to complete and return a full profile back to the receptionist to qualify that patient. So when we do the symptom scores, I'll walk you through it here in a process in a second, but we provide that to the front desk. When we do the training, we come in and we show the receptionist how to be able to be that first touch of the patient for their allergy program. Keep in mind, 1 out of every 5 patients that walk in a family practice door have allergies. So that means that if you're seeing 30 patients a day, there's a potential there of 5 to 6 patients that you might be able to land just by talking about that and let them know that you have the allergy-free program in your office. Step 2 will be the allergy-free testing. And with the testing, we provide a 25-patient allergy-free test kit. We also provide a 50-patient test kit for the higher volumes when you get up to like 10 a week or 2 a day. This will test for the top 70 allergens across the country, and we'll explain the panel here in a little bit. Step 3, after you've done the testing, now you know exactly what is causing these particular triggers. So the allergy-free test identifies what triggers are causing the allergy symptoms. Once you know what is causing the allergy, you can make adjustments in your lifestyle to reduce exposure or reduce or prevent allergy flare-ups in the future. So that's a super important portion of the testing. And that's really the real reason why you do the testing is, and we'll go through this here in a little bit more detail, is to set the baseline to be able to identify what's causing the problem. And then once you know what's causing the problem, then we can provide that information to the patient and say, hey, you might want to start, cleaning the house a little bit better if it's dust mites or cat dander or something like that. That's simply exposure. It's something that you can control inside your environment, but if it's outdoors, it's really hard to control that environment when you're walking outdoors. So keep that in mind as we move through this. Step 4 is once you've done the allergy testing and now you know what to prevent them from trying to get exposure to, now you do the immunotherapy. At this point, you know exactly what's causing the issues. And if it's something especially if it's something outside that they really can't avoid, really the only option is immunotherapy. The allergy-free drops are made from FDA-approved allergen extracts. It's the exact same extracts that you would use not only on the testing, but also the same extracts you would use in the allergy shots and prescribed to patients through telemed or medicine clinics. This immunotherapy is not just something you can buy off the shelf, and it's not an over-the-counter. It is a specific formulation that is a comprehensive formulation of the top 90 allergens across the country. So it is a prescription from a compounding pharmacy, from our pharmacy, our Partel pharmacy out in Las Vegas. And that they have licenses throughout the country that can supply the prescription. So we'll go through those details in the immunotherapy section. But for right now, we'll go through the live allergy-free in step 5. And once you've gone through the testing, you've gone through the prevention, you've gone through the immunotherapy, now you're pretty much allergy-free. And we'll teach you in the next segment what autoimmune disorders look like and how we can desensitize your immune system from the proteins that are causing you the trigger. So AllergyFree offers a simple yet comprehensive evidence-based ancillary program to treat allergies by creating immunotherapy through low-dose exposure. So now let's get into the prevention or the patient evaluation and the protocol. Patients dealing with chronic allergies assume that suffering from allergies is just part of life, but it honestly doesn't have to be. Finally, there's an evidence-based approach that we've created for primary care to effectively test and treat for allergic sensitivities like sinuses, respiratory, gastrointestinal, and skin issues. With AllergyFree, Primary care providers now have a way to identify allergies in the office without losing control of that patient by referring them out to an allergy specialist or an ENT. And that it also allows them to treat the allergy with the safest, most comprehensive immunotherapy on the market, allergy-free drops. Now let's go through that protocol process. First, the patient shows up at the front desk and they may have allergy symptoms. If your receptionist identifies that the patient might have allergy symptoms, then she'll mention to the patient, hey, I think we might have a solution for you here. And if that's the case, then great. Then they hand over the form and then they go through the survey. So once the patient goes through the survey and they do the symptom score, then they hand it back to the receptionist for qualification. So that survey and the review and the questions all goes back to the front desk, and then they sit back down in the office. Once that happens, they now go to the next step, which is testing. That's what we're going to be talking about in this section. So once you get the test scheduled, they come in and they do the skin test. And we'll show you a video here in just a little bit on how to do the skin test in the office. Then they do the evaluation. Once now you have identified what's causing the allergy and what the triggers are, now you can offer the sublingual immunotherapy. Because at this point, we go into the therapy section, and then from there, we do the allergy drops for the immune response so we can desensitize the allergy trigger. So we're training the immune system not to respond to those proteins. It just basically identifies the protein and goes, I've seen this before. It's no big deal. I don't have to react. And that's really what you're doing with your immune system. At this point, now we can also provide avoidance, because now that we've done the testing, we know what the triggers are. And if there's ways that you can modify your lifestyle by creating a cleaner environment or less exposure to these particular things that are causing the allergy trigger, that's the key. So in combination with the immunotherapy to desensitize your immune system, along with the avoidance to lower your exposure, that's the guide. So that's the real reason why we want to do the testing, is so we know how to properly address the therapy. So now we go through the patient. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go step by step through the evaluation and the protocol. So right here, we're going to give the patient at the front desk, you'll see a trifold. Inside that trifold, you'll see a little tear-off section where it shows a qualifier survey, which is this. So patient name, date of birth, do you suffer from allergies in the summer, spring, fall, or winter? Now, the reason why we call them seasonal allergies is some people are allergic to just a couple of things, like grass, which is in the summer, or trees, which is in the spring, weeds are in the fall, or winter, which is indoor. So we can identify just by them giving us, when are your allergies the worst? Oh my God, spring allergies are the worst. Okay, so there's a good indication that trees might be the issue for this particular type of patient. We also ask what kind of allergy medications they may be using. And keep in mind, when you're doing the allergy test, you want to stay off of antihistamines at least 48 hours prior to the test. The reason for that is the skin test actually triggers a histamine response, and that's the wheel that we see. We measure that wheel. We know based on the size of the wheel, as far as the millimeters, that gives us the intensity of how bad that allergy is with the immune system. So we want to know what kind of over-the-counter medications may be taken. Have they ever been tested before? If not, then great. Now you know that this is something that is going to be new for them. If they have been tested before, you can ask them, okay, how long ago was it? When was the testing? What were the results? What did you show that you were allergic to? Pollen, pets, insects, molds, food? Anything that you might have a history on before, they might be able to identify. So do any pets cause any of your allergy symptoms? Yes, no, dog, cat, other. When we say other, we're talking about cattle, horse, mice even, might be triggering some of these issues. Do you suffer from asthma? Yes or no? As we learned in the statistics, 70% of asthmatics are triggered by allergy. So if they have asthma, that's a real good indicator that if we were able to treat the allergy and desensitize them from the allergy, there's a really good chance they won't have to carry their inhaler anymore, which is huge for an asthmatic. I mean, it only takes one asthma attack to really say, you know what, I don't want to have one of those again. And when you can offer something to prevent them from ever getting into their asthma or having another asthma attack or get it to where they can't breathe or avoid that situation where they can't breathe anymore, that's huge for a patient. Shots. Have you done immunotherapy before? Yes or no? Are you on inhalers? Yes or no? Have you done shots before? Did they work? Chances are, if they're still suffering from allergies, they probably quit the shots and said, no, they didn't work. If they've done drops before, usually people that have done drops before may not be ours. Maybe it should be a regional one in some other location. There's a couple of these systems that are kind of sprinkled around the United States, but they're all regional. None of them are national. So that might be at least give us a better idea of how educated this patient is towards allergies. Have they done testing before? Do they know what's causing the triggers? These are the things that we need to know. So then the trifold is located at the front desk. The receptionist is in charge of being able to identify those patients. And during the training, we go through a little one-on-one and train your front office staff to be able to identify these patients as they come up to the front desk. The receptionist offers the new AllergyFree program. They hand it over to the patient. Patient then reads the flyer. If applicable, and they go, yeah, wow, this really sounds like me, then they complete the survey, which is right here, and they also complete the symptom score. Now, the symptom score is the backside of this survey. So you've got the front and the back. So you want to make sure that the receptionist says, okay, I see the survey, flip it over. Did they fill out the symptom score, yes or no? Now, the reason why the symptom score is so important is I can look at this symptom score and go, okay, they're a 2 on a headache, so obviously they're having some kind of sinus pressure. The asthma and wheezing is in a 3, so it's a little above the median, so they're having some issues. There's obviously inflammatory issues going on here. You go down to pink eye and ear infection. Okay, we got nothing with the eyes, nothing with the ears. Everything's fine there. Runny nose and nasal congestion. Okay, now we know the culprit for the headache and the potential wheezing and asthma. So now we know that it's a really good candidate for the allergy. Sneezing also comes along with a runny nose. It tickles the nose, makes people sneeze, makes people cough. Post-nasal drip. Sinus infection, they might know if it's coming on or not, because when you have a sinus infection, you really have a hard time breathing through your nose, and you're constantly stuffed up. It's not like that's when that stuff gets really compacted, and then you blow your nose and all that green stuff comes out. People know that. I mean, if you've got allergies, you know that if it's gone bad enough, it will become a sinus infection eventually. Post-nasal drip, anything that's going from the sinuses down through the back of the neck, which would cause any kind of bronchitis or coughing. So that makes sense as well. Pneumonia, sore throat, strep throat, we're not at that point yet. Laryngitis, they may be feeling a little hoarse because you got that post-nasal drip going through the back. Then you've got eczema and hives. Oh, that's interesting. We've got some skin issues here too. And all skin issues are with allergy is an external symptom of an internal allergy. You just need to identify what's causing those issues. And then, of course, we've got no diaper rash or gastroenteritis, so we're clear there. So we've got all upper respiratory, a little bit behind the neck, and then we've got some skin issues. That allows a provider to be able to say, okay, this is a really good candidate. And to be honest with you, the reason why we do the total score is we've gotten patients that are like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s sometimes. I mean, really bad patients that are just miserable. This person is right on the verge of being miserable. So they're about median, halfway through. Anything above a 30 is going to be a really good score to be able to say, okay, I know this patient's going to be a really good candidate. So then you return the flyer to the patient returns a flyer to the front desk. Then the receptionist tears off the symptom score and the survey and then hands it off to the medical assistant. Then the medical assistant, the receptionist then hands the marketing portion back to the patient so they can take it home. Patient then returns to their seat, and the medical assistant then reviews the patient survey, opens up the door, calls the patient back, and starts to put them into the room. While they're going into the room, it looks like you might be an allergy patient. That's great. You know, our allergy program works really, really well. Our patients are super happy with it. You know, just give them a little boost of confidence as they're going back into their exam room. And then you just, so as they go to the exam room, they sit down, the doctor will be with you soon. The MA then notifies the provider that, hey, we have an allergy-free candidate here in the office. And then the provider then reviews the patient survey with the patient. And then if the patient says, yes, I want to move forward with the program, then they schedule a patient for the next available test date. So that's how the survey works in the office, in the front office. So we identify the patients early on, and you don't want to miss one of these patients, because this program is so life-changing for a lot of patients that you really are doing a valuable service to patients that are dealing with allergies, simply because they just feel like they have to deal with it all the time, and they really don't have to. So now that we've gone through the patient, the survey, and the qualifications, now we go up to the testing. So as we go through the testing piece, again, we're going to go through the skin testing, and then we go through the evaluation. Now, what I get a question of all the time is, hey, if the therapy is 90 allergens from the top allergies across the country, do we really need to do the test? Well, the answer technically is no. You do not have to do the test. However, a lot of times allergy can be converted from like a cold or a flu. You don't know. So they could have the same similar ones. So if they do have allergies and you put them on the drops, awesome. Yeah, it's not gonna change anything. Everybody's gonna have the same drops anyway, because it's a universal dose and everybody has the top 90 allergens, and we build the immunotherapy. You'll learn that in the next segment. But technically, no, they don't have to, which is why we offer allergy-free through telemed companies as well as primary care in the office. But here's the real reason why we do testing. There's 5 reasons here. One is to confirm or rule out that they have allergies in the first place. So, like I said just a second ago, you may have symptoms that are similar: upper respiratory issues, coughing issues. It could just be a cold. It doesn't necessarily have to be an allergy, but typically allergies will create that cold symptom in the first place. So, and then you've got to identify the allergic triggers. So once you do the testing, now you say, okay, here's what you're allergic to. Without the testing, you can't say, here's what you're allergic to. And especially if you're doing stuff that's indoors, you want to be able to provide that patient a solution to what you have, or to what the issues are that they have. So again, it comes down to being able to either confirm or rule out the allergy, identify the allergic triggers, and then be able to target exposure reduction, which is what we call avoidance. If we know what the triggers are, and we know it's a cat, or we know it's dust, or we know it's mold or something like that, we can give suggestions on lifestyle changes to be able to decrease that exposure or avoid it altogether. Number 4 is determine the course of therapy. Is it bad enough? Is it just one item, or is it 30 items? We don't know until we actually do the testing. We don't know how bad the allergy is until we do the testing. So that determines what kind of course of therapy. If we've got somebody that's miserable and they are testing positive to everything, grass, weeds, trees, molds, cats, I mean, everything. If they are that off the chart sensitive, immunotherapy honestly is the only way to reverse that. It also sets a baseline for therapy. So we'll go through an example of a patient here in a little bit, but if we know what the allergies are at the beginning, and we know how sensitive you are based on the measurement of the wheel, how sensitive you are to all of those particular allergies, now we know what your starting point is, your baseline. We put the patient on the therapy for 12 months, and then they come back and they do another test. I'll show you a before, and then 12 months after the therapy, you're going to be unbelievably shocked when I show you what the results are on this. Ancillary revenue for the practice. So now we don't want to lead with that, but when I show you how much revenue can be generated from testing patients in your office without having to refer them off to an allergist, you're going to realize that the numbers that you can make on the net income to the bottom line of your practice at the end of each year, just by adding this ancillary service to your practice, now if you're referring 1 or 2 patients to an allergist a year, that allergist is hopefully giving you a Christmas card back, but what they should be doing is giving you a Christmas car. Make sense? When I show you the numbers, you'll be like, okay, I'm not sending any more patients out. I'm going to start doing it myself. Okay, so the grass is the green tray. The most popular allergy reactions come from plant pollens. On the green tray, we have the most common grasses, which you'll see down there, the Bahia, Bermuda, Johnson, Kentucky, perennial, and Timothy grass that bloom in the summer. And then we've got the weeds panel on B and C that bloom in the fall. So you've got other than alfalfa, which is technically a grass, when you start with bayberry all the way over to sagebrush, you'll see those are all weed allergies that come in the fall. So this is why we created this is why you have seasonal allergies, because different plants bloom at different times of the year. So as a matter of fact, when they call hay fever, has been used for years, but it's not the hay that's causing a fever. It's the allergic reaction to the fall harvest. Ragweed can be easily disturbed when the hay is being cut and harvested and then pushed up in the air, causing an allergic reaction to the farmer due to overexposure and triggered sensitivity to that actual weed pollen. So ragweed is notorious for being on the edge of a farm, and if that harvester comes over and just runs over all of those weeds, those yellow flowers dump a ton of pollen up into the air and can make a farmer miserably sick. Number 2 is tree pollen. So spring allergies are not just in the spring. So for example, in Texas, evergreen trees such as mountain cedar and bald cypress release pollen in the winter months of December, January, and February. Depending on when that first cold snap comes through, you'll get a cold weather pattern that'll come from the north, and right behind it is a drastic drop in temperature, but in front of it becomes a lot of wind. So the wind, it gets really bad in the gust of winds when those cold fronts come through. It throws that cedar pollen up in the air, and cedar is the only winter blooming plant in northern hemisphere and is the highest allergenic score, 5 out of 5. Then once spring actually gets here, the rest of the trees begin to drop pollen, except for cottonwood that blooms in the summer. That's also called summer snow and is also highly allergic. You'll see that going all along the Colorado River and the Rio Grande River, all the way from the Rockies all the way down through New Mexico. You'll see a bunch of cottonwood trees all up in those Rocky Mountains and down into the basins. So this is something that you'll see, and they're all in alphabetical order. And so we group all the trees together on one panel, and I'll show you during the test results how these things come out. Then the last panel is the black panel. This is there. You have 3 pollens from the trees: the white oak, white pine, and white poplar from the blue panel. But the rest of it, from Alternaria all the way up to you'll see Aspergillus fumigatus. You'll also see the molds and fungi from Candida albicans, all the way down. So you've got your G panel and your H panel are mostly molds and fungi. And then you've got your animals and insects from cat hair, cattle, cockroach, dog epithelium, horse epithelium, dust mites, and mouse epithelium. So those are all internal. So this whole black panel, except for the 3 oak, pine, and poplar trees, all of those are found indoors. And remember, 50% of the homes have at least 6 detectable allergens inside the house, and these are them.
How to perform a skin test. When performing a skin test, the first step is to wipe down the back with alcohol preps. This will remove any excess oil or other debris. Once this is complete, you are ready to begin the test. Use a Sharpie pen to label the back. Starting at the upper left and moving to the right, mark the letters A, B, C across the top of the shoulders. This will be for the green panel testing. Move down approximately 6 inches and mark letters D, E, and F across the middle of the back. This will be for the blue panel. And finally, mark letters G, H, I on the lower back. These will be for the black indoor panel. Begin the test with section A. Press the first applicator firmly onto the back, pushing it back and forth to make sure all 4 corners and all applicator pins make solid contact with the skin. Continue to each section using the same technique. Each applicator is for a single use only and should be discarded after use. Continue working down the back, applying each applicator to its designated section. Each applicator should only take approximately 30 seconds to apply once you get familiar with the process. As you can see, the test results begin to take effect rapidly. Once you have completed the test, there will be a 15-minute incubation period. The nurse can leave the room and attend to other duties while the patient is resting and waiting. This is time-lapse footage of the 15-minute incubation period. Watch sections A, B, and C, D, E, F, and I react. You can see them starting to swell. This is the histamine reaction we are trying to capture. As you can see in section A, this patient has a serious allergic reaction to grass. Now that we have finished the test, we need to take paper towels and drape them over the back so we can dab the additional extraction oils off the skin. We measured the reactions by using a Sharpie pen to mark the furthest point to furthest point on each reaction. The reason we measure all reactions now instead of individually one at a time is because once the excess oil has been removed, the reaction points can begin to reduce in size. After all the reactions have been marked, we then measure the distance between points for each reaction, noting each of them on the test form.
So that is how you do an allergy test. So here's what the results look like, and you saw how the inflammatory response works on the back. Now keep in mind that's a 15-minute wait time. So we time-lapse that a little bit just to kind of speed that up, but now you get a really good idea of exactly how that looks and what you're going to be measuring and how you measure it. Now what I'm going to show you here is I'm going to show you an example of a negative allergy test. What we do is on the very item A1 is your positive control. Item A2 is your negative control. So you'll always know that the first one's going to be positive and the second one's going to be negative. Now, you want to use that positive. If it shows up as positive, that's kind of your baseline to say, okay, this is what a positive test looks like. Anything that's equal to or greater than that is going to be a positive test. Obviously, the negative, which is A2, right underneath that is your negative, and so the rest of the back looks like that, and it's negative. Now, here's you know that this is a negative test, not an invalid test, and here's the reason why. We put the positive control in there so you know that if the positive control goes off and there's nothing else showing positive, then that patient is a negative. If the positive control does not show positive, then that means the entire test is invalid because the patient is on antihistamines. And what you're doing is you're blocking that histamine reaction, and therefore the test is invalid. You just wasted an allergy test. So you want to make sure that before you offer the allergy test, and inside that allergy form, you'll also see, have you taken any antihistamines? The answer has always got to say no over the last 48 hours. You want to make sure that they are not on antihistamines at all. Otherwise, you'll get an invalid test. Here is a positive test. Obviously, you can see the positive up there in the top left on section A1, but keep in mind, your A panel right there in that whole section are grasses. Do you think this person's allergic to allergies in grass? Absolutely. What about panels B and C? Panels B and C are going to be fall allergies because those are all weeds. So you've got three positives on the B panel, and it looks like you've got two, possibly three there on the C panel. Now on the DEF, those are your trees. So that's going to be your blue panel. Blue panel is going to be in the middle. And you can see on the E section, there's definitely 3 or 4. And then on the F section, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll see those as positive. Then you'll go down to the G section. G's are going to be the molds, except for the first 3 are going to be trees. So G1, G2, G3 are going to be trees. So G3 is a continuation. Down there, you see the positive that is also part of a tree panel. But you also see on G7 and 8, those will also look positive. And then on H, you've got the H5 and H8. And then on the I panel, it doesn't look like from here you might be positive, but you got to. This is where you look at, okay, I think that I5 might be positive. Take a look at the positive control. You go down there, you go, yeah, it might be positive. Look at the positive control. Okay, it's less than the positive control, so we're just going to say, no, that's not it. So we'll just call that negative. You can go ahead, if there is a wheal that's smaller than that, go ahead and measure it and put it into the report form. But as far as like a major allergy to that, it's nothing near like what E3 and 4 look like, or F8 looks like. Those are absolute positives. So those are a lot bigger than the positive on the A1 section. So now here's something that's really cool because it's super clean. Now you can see the positive up there barely, just because it's in that tattoo range. And sometimes you'll get tattoos that might interfere with it, but when you do that, you want to take a light and you want to shine the light from the side, and then it'll create a shadow. When you create that shadow, that's where you can measure that, because that wheal will raise up off the skin. It'll create a shadow on the side, and then you'll say, okay, yeah, that's a positive, even though that tattoo might be hiding it. And so this one also, you've got 3 grasses, and then 2 items on indoor for the eye, which is, I believe one of those is cat. So now you know what's triggering this particular type of patient. So when you compare the previous patient before, that previous patient before that was just lit up like a Christmas tree to all kinds of stuff is a perfect candidate for allergy drops, because allergy shots, it would take them forever to try and cure that patient with allergy shots, simply because there's so many things they're allergic to, and they're so allergic to them that it would take them forever. It would take 3 to 6 years to get them to fix the immune response to that, compared to our drops, which only takes 12 months, potentially a little bit more than 12 months, depending on how well that compliance is on the patient after the drops. So that's a really good example of what those patients look like when you're doing the measurements. Everybody has a different reaction because everybody's got different allergy sensitivities. And that's the reason why you do the testing. You never really know until you actually do the testing, what's causing the issue. Here is the report form. Now, this report form can also be submitted for billing. So that's the reason why we put the ICD-10 codes up there too. So what you'll do is you'll ask the patient, do you have any of these symptoms? Check, 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 check. Those are your ICD-10 codes to justify your testing. You'll also look at taking any antihistamines. You want to answer that question before you do the test, because if they've taken antihistamines within the last 48 hours, you're going to have to reschedule that test because they didn't comply, or they were not told, which, when we come in and do the training, we want to make sure that everybody knows, when you go through your patient pack and you send them home with a packet saying, okay, here's what you need to do to prepare for your allergy test. Number one thing on there is stop all allergy medications 2 to 3 days prior to coming in for your test. You want them symptomatic coming in. And if they are symptomatic coming in, that's when you know that they're off of their medication. So in these different sections, you'll be able to put the measurements, and all of these are by a millimeter wheel. And if you take a look down at the bottom down there, you'll see the 11 millimeters or higher is going to be an extremely high allergy. 9 millimeters is a very high allergy. 7 millimeters is high allergy. 5 millimeter is moderate. 4 millimeter is low. And under 4 millimeter is trace. So typically your positive control will be around that 3 to 4 millimeter measurement, which is enough to show a positive reaction and positive control. All right, now we're going to go through the revenue calculations of allergy testing. Let's say, for example, in the survey that you give, that we provide to all of our providers, we go through a little feasibility study. And in that feasibility study, we say, okay, how many patients a day do you see? Now, I am going to give you an example on this one. I give you another one in more of the support. I go into more detail in the support segment, which is the last segment here in all of these training videos. But what I do is I say, okay, if it's a 30 patients a day, that is typically one single provider, small clinic, and we do the low volume on 1 or 2 just to show you an idea. Now, keep in mind, if you've got 30 patients and the statistics say that 1 out of every 5, you're looking at probably 5 to 6 patients on average, especially during allergy season, are going to be showing up as potential allergy-free patients. But just for sake of showing low volume, we'll show you an example of how profitable this can be just using 2 patients a day. So if you do 30, 10% of the patients, which is half of what you would do, is 3. If you're looking at, and we're just going to say, okay, let's just do 2. That's 2 patients a day is only 10 patients a week. So that's 40 patients a month. So as we go through this, you say, okay, we've got 2 patients. What are typically the things that you're going to see most on a daily basis when patients are walking through? Check the items on there that you think you see on a daily basis. Obviously, fatigue is going to be one of them, rhinitis, and postnasal drip are going to be anything through the ear, the nose. You're looking at upper respiratory for any kind of asthma, bronchitis, upper respiratory infection, acute sinusitis, or maybe even dermatological. You might have a couple of skin rashes every once in a while, and they're like, hey, I don't know what's causing this, but I've got some eczema or I've got hives or whatever. That's when you say, potential allergy patient here. Now, that could be food, that could be inhalant, that could be contact dermatitis. We don't know until we actually do the test. And usually family practice don't really see a lot of gastroenteritis. You might see it once in a while, but especially with gluten sensitivity, you might get some really bad, like IBS would be a irritable bowel syndrome. Those are actually potential allergy patients because that IBS may be caused by something that they're eating. And so you want to make sure that we can test to see if we can control that particular type of patient or the issues that they're having. So now let's go through the calculation of the feasibility study. So we take that 2 patients a day, and we know that you're open 5 days a week. So that's urgent care is open 7 days a week. So you're looking at 28 patients or 28 days a week. But just on a single doctor provider family practice, open 5 days a week, you're looking at potentially 1 or 2. So what we'll do is we'll calculate the 2. Even if it's 1, you'll cut the actual dollar amount in half, but we'll just stick to 2. And that means that 2 patients times 20 working days is 40 patients a month. At the general average, national average for Medicare reimbursement is $95004, and that's $5.31 per prick. We have 72 pricks, and Medicare doesn't allow you to bill for the positive and negative control. Private pay insurances are okay with that, but just on Medicare, and again, we're being ultra conservative here, okay? We're doing that on purpose. We want to make sure that you understand that a low volume clinic can still make really great money on this particular ancillary program. So you look at $371.70 per test, take away the $160 cost per test. Now your net income is $211. So let's just say it's $200. You're making $200 every single patient for a 30-patient visit or 30-minute visit. So that's great money for that doubles what your typical, level 3 or level 4 visit looks like. So it's significantly better. So you take that $211.70, you multiply that times the number of patients per day, which is 2. So now you've got $423 per day times 20 working days is $8,468 per month. That's great. That's $8,500 a month extra revenue on patients that you were referring out before, or just giving them a over-the-counter medication or a shot of a steroid and saying, good luck. Let me know if it gets worse. Come on back. This time, now you're proactively creating an ancillary program that is an evidence-based allergy program in the practice that you can identify with diagnostics and you can offer with therapy. Nobody else in the country is offering something like this. There may be other allergy companies out there, but what they've done is they've created somebody else's staff comes into your practice. They take over a room. They give you pennies on the dollar of what they make. And all it is about the money that they can make from your patients and your practice. And they give you a finder's fee, basically. And we don't do that. What we do here is we literally teach you how to fish. and then give you the fishing pole and the bait. You go fish, and whatever you catch, you get to keep. All you have to do is just keep buying the fishing rod and the bait from us. And that's it. That's how we work our program. So now you net $8,468 a month times 12 months is $100,000 a year from 2 patients a day. Even if you do 1 patient a day, that's still 5 patients a week. That's still 20 patients a month. That's still $50,000 net income to your bottom line a year. And you didn't do it with anybody else's staff. We teach everybody in the practice. We cross-train everybody in the practice. So everybody knows how to do a skin test. Everybody knows how to manage the patients. Everybody knows what the patient flow looks like. Everybody knows how to ask the right questions to the patients when they walk in the door. So we make it completely dummy-proof, and your staff handles all of it. Now, the most common overlooked treatable disease state in the world is allergy. Yet most primary care doctors have limited resources to provide an evidence-based solution for their patients until now. So thank you very much for listening to this presentation. I hope it was helpful. Now we'll go into the allergy-free drop therapy on the next segment.